Okay. So silindeo i-report ephuma kulo zasho ukuthi le building isamile nawo ayimele isusu. Uthi ukuthi so uthi nje bethe ukuthi uzi-engineer lapha kule building. If engineer ile building ayimela ngihlala abantu. Then nani biza kuba kululuhlu lwabantu abebanike la kulo mhlaba lo. Kanti futhi ayiphelele nalapha basa noba apho niya khona sifuna yazi ba senihleli kahle sizosho ukuthi babe one day sasilapha eroom kaBhuthabo kukhona indawo bakube ne-light basibe ne-meeting. Kodwa ngokuthi ngoba basendaweni enjani na ne so siyabulela kakhulu basinisiphe thuba.
Siyabulela kakhulu, keep it up.
My father was a communist. He himself had wanted to be a lawyer, and he died when I was 13. So I hoped that in my adult life I would fulfill his dream. I arrived at law school with those hopes that I would fight injustice. I feel that law school actually demoralized me. I was taught that actually the law is not on the side of the poor and the marginalized. When I started working in this field, I then saw that actually the law could be used to change the country and to actually meet people's aspirations for their lives. I think for me it was a dream come true.
There was a very strong tradition of legal resistance to apartheid, and very ingenious legal strategies were devised to resist forced removals, to get people out of detention, to evade the past laws. We've had Bram Fisher in this country, we've had Nelson Mandela, we've had Oliver Tambo, and we've had many, many other radical lawyers, many of whom are now sitting on the bench as judges, who have really set the example. But every generation has to find its own way, and each generation has to decide for itself what justice is and how best to fight for it.
The law during apartheid was used more as a sword and as a tool of repression. Today, it can be a tool for liberation. The jurisprudence is still quite young and there's still room for creativity regarding how we use it, which opens up possibilities which have not been fully explored. So I think that's the new challenge facing us as human rights lawyers. As much as South Africa is advanced and we've got the best constitution in the world, the majority of our population lives in abject poverty. Not having secure tenure, not having access to housing. As a black person, I have family members who are in that situation, and I think that's what keeps me motivated. We talk about the legacy of apartheid. It's everywhere. I see it everywhere. I experience it every day. So it's that constant discomfort with the status quo that has pushed me to keep fighting, to effect change in society. That's my source of fire.
I'm originally from the Eastern Cape. I'm a typical village boy. I grew up in a village, so it's typical village life. So, you can imagine, no electricity, no water. You always had to fight for everything, even going to school. So naturally, resistance was part of me, the struggle was part of me. Unfortunately, in South Africa, access to justice is one of the biggest challenges. So human rights lawyers are very important that when people are not heard, when they try to stand up for themselves, at least they have someone who's willing to listen, at least who's willing to open up space for them to be able to engage a government.
Radical lawyers are necessary to say that a constitution on paper alone isn't sufficient. It needs to be enacted. It needs to be lived out, enforced in the lives of people every single day.
Constitution, housing, section 20, is it? No one may be evicted from their home.
I've had the privilege of spending some time with one of the social movements that we support, Abahlaleli Basemjondolo. For me, I found them very inspirational and they grounded me in the work that I do. Getting into those kinds of spaces and speaking to people inside social movements, you have a very different worldview, and I think that's where the solutions to overcoming our problems will be.
Respect is the most basic thing. When we interact with communities, we make sure that before talking the law, they understand what is going on, so that they're in a position to give us proper instructions and say that this is what we want as a community, and not impose things on them. As a radical lawyer, it is important that we educate those communities, make sure that they understand what their rights are and how they can go about enforcing them. What happens in a situation where they are dispersed with rubber bullets in a protest? With us as radical lawyers, it is important that we impart that knowledge.
I spent a year at the Constitutional Court. It's an opportunity that you get for a year, and you work with a judge and you basically assist them with research and whatever else they need in preparation for their work. It was probably one of the best years of my entire life. The majority of cases that come to the Constitutional Court relate to Black people, but the majority of the representatives in the court are white people, mostly white males. This is the sector that's empowered and tasked with facilitating access to justice, yet we ourselves are failing to embody all those principles and to fulfill all those constitutional imperatives. Currently, I am working for an organization called the Chisimane Center for Activist Education. There aren't a lot of Black women who do this work. If I could say I have achieved my purpose, it would be to see the sector a lot more representative and with strong women's voices coming through and guiding the narrative of this work.
Of all the fields in law, human rights is the most worthwhile, I believe. And it's a very exciting field, it's very dynamic. Next step in my career is to start working as an attorney at the Equal Education Law Center. I've always had a passion for education, and especially with my background of having gone to a public school in a township that wasn't well resourced, I've always had this passion of improving the education in townships and rural communities. Coming into human rights, you come with lots of determination, lots of hope, and you're very, very idealistic. And it's important to keep that idealism going. It's important to keep that passion going, because that is what will fuel you, that will drive you through the hard times.